Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
So this is not your typical Z and Z. Z, otherwise known as Zombie Hedgehog, has run away to join the circus, or he and his wife are at a wedding in the Pacific Northwest. So I am joined by...
With the replacement clown.
Pooch. Yes. So
hi, everybody. I'm Pooch.
And of course, Pooch. If you don't know him already, you're going to get to meet him during this conversation. So one of the first things that people say to me when they come into my stream is, I love your racks. Look at all your filament. It looks gorgeous. And I immediately tell them, yes, it's my RepRack. These are my RepRacks. And then I sort of spread the gospel of the RepRack. So I think we're going to go into what a RepRack is, and then we're going to talk about the story behind it and go from there. So without further ado, this is a slideshow that I often bring up on my stream as well, because I am very special. What is RepRack?
This is great.
Yeah. So when I first started out, this is how my filament was sadly stored on a bookshelf. I had to, of course, if I wanted to grab one spool, I had to move things around, and it was just always a disaster. So when I moved into my new place, I knew I wanted to make a change. The inspiration of this change is our friend, K2 Kevin. He, when he started 3D printing, one of the first things he did was build RepRacks for his filament. And I will say that he has a lot more racks now than even here. So he definitely inspired that. We actually went into Tinkercad and designed my maker space with my calyx units and where the racks were going to go and my desk and all of those things. So then of course I planned out my racks. I started printing my racks when I was at my old place. I did 6 5-foot racks. I anchored the cleats into the wall, into wall studs as much as I could. Of course, you use a level and you measure not once, not twice, but several times. It is recommended that you use strong filament. For me, I used PLA Pro and Polymax. A lot of people use PETG, and of course, Pooch, you'll have some, I guess, some suggestions on what people might want to use, but so far so good.
Yeah.
For me, I used number 8 wood screws that were 3 inches long, but you could also use drywall screws. I did not use French cleats, but that is the best option I have heard.
French cleats, best cleats.
Yeah. And of course, if you are not as ambitious, you can buy a RepRack starter kit from RepKord.
True.
And that's a great way to get going, and then I guarantee that you will be addicted. So go to repcord.com and get started right there. So for the hangers, I printed them at 0.3 for strength, and of course, as I mentioned, you use strong filament. Don't use silk or anything like that, because these are going to be holding the conduit and supporting your filament and hung on the wall. So you want to make sure it's nice and strong. So you do use these cleats. Of course, we have the whole story of French cleats, which we could talk about. But the cleats, again, you want to print them really strong and have those ready to support the hangers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, another part that is an option, but is one that I used, are the stabilizing end caps, which were designed by K2 Kevin. There's lots of different modifications based on your needs on the printables for RepRacks. And with those, that's where you can get a little bit fancy, because you can use your fun colors and stuff. It's just to make sure that the ends sort of stay together. And some people do bring one of the hangers to the front and screw it in place and stuff like that. Mine are just like held there. So there you go. And yes, lots of people in chat are fans of those end caps. So this is my initial RepRack. I have since totally reorganized the colors and done all sorts of things, but I've got the big MakerDeck logo behind. I'm working on like including some LEDs and doing all sorts of fun stuff. And there you go. And we've got people from MakerDeck that have RepRacks. I sort of just went through our Discord and grabbed them. So this is Osito Crafts. I think they've built more RepRacks since. Tech Cheaper just got started with RepRacks. So that's the beginning of his. C. Travis. Yeah. C. Travis not only has RepRacks on the wall, but he also has done
cabinets.
Yep. So he has them. Yeah. So that's also RepRacks.
Beautiful.
And Glendon just set up like one of the biggest sets of racks I've ever seen.
That's a long one, huh? What's the length on that? Do we know?
Glendon, you'll have to let us know because I think that's like
over 10.
15?
That looks like over 10 feet to me.
Yeah, I think it's
must
15.
Be multiple pieces. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and he's setting up that room. He's going to be setting up that room in the next little while with his printers and all that jazz. So 13. He said 13 feet.
Yeah.
So very impressive, Glendon. Very impressive. I think that's all of them. I almost did pro streamer here. I almost did a post where it's like show us your racks.
I love that. Well, I still like. Yeah. I think your idea to make the shirts would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So much euphemism in the world of 3D printing, guys.
Exactly. Yes, there are gals. There are gals.
The global gals and guys. Yes. It's all. Yeah,
so now that you have seen just part of who Pooch is, let us know who are you?
Who is your daddy and what does he do? I like to say. My name is Alan Puccinelli, hence the Pooch. I've been called Pooch ever since I was in school, and I think it started as one of those things where, you know, people thought they were going to bully me with it, and I just owned it from a very young age. And so, you know, everybody that thinks, oh, I'm going to call you Pooch, I'm like, okay, cool. That's what everybody calls me. It's memorable, and it's all I've known. Only weirdos really call me Alan. That's not true. My mom calls me Alan. She's not a weirdo. But I own a company called RepKord. I'm based out of Auburn, California. I got my start in 3D printing in the year 2015 as a hobbyist, like many. I became addicted very early on. One printer became 2 printers, became 5 printers, became I'm gonna start figuring out how to make money with these printers. I'm gonna start figuring out how to sell accessories, and I fell into the kind of spool management storage solution world, the organization world. So our first like flagship product, it still is the RepBox, which is just a filament storage box that's flat packed like IKEA style. It is made of acrylic and has all kinds of whiz bang customizations and light kit options and stuff these days. But we branched out beyond that to start doing the turntable style for larger spools. And then the RepRack was born, probably almost 2 years ago at this point. As one of my, I like to try to do something at least annually, and it's become more than that now because it's an addiction, just to give back to the community, an open design of some kind. And because I have so much filament for all the production and stuff that we do, sadly, I don't have nearly the gamut of color that you do and a lot of other people do, but I have a sheer volume of filament, both in my home office and my shop at work and whatnot, that was just like you, constantly frustrated that I didn't have a good storage mechanism for it. And so I just started noodling ideas and needed kind of a bulk storage solution. And I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, in the stream that EMT is just such a great build material. I love it. It's cheap and strong and ubiquitous here in the States. I realize that internationally it's not quite as abundant. But the good news is that the RepRack has been around long enough, and we've had an awesome community of people that have done all kinds of really useful remixes to utilize materials that are indigenous to your region. So I've seen stuff that uses like IKEA closet rods and dowels and piping and all sorts of things that are more common in various parts of the world, which is exactly what I had hoped people would do with an open design like that. And it's really turned into something awesome. Recently, I've circled back with it because I'm in kind of a rebirth, reimagining of our print farm and my home office and stuff. I've just been on an organization kick, a new organization kick. And it's got me just kind of like iterating on some new stuff. So we've added like a modular shelving system now. So if you don't want to just have open tubing, there's a parametric design for creating shelving. We have the new, where did I put it? Oh, here. Sorry. We have the XL size for people who like big racks. And this is to hold, like, if you guys have seen any of like Polymaker's 3K, 5K size spools or other large, if you do like a lot of printing, I know there's a bunch of people in the chat that are doing print farming, and you realize, hey, changing out spools all the time is for suckers. So looking for bigger storage and printing stand solutions for those large spools, that was kind of how that was born. And what's also cool about the XL is the shelving system for that is compatible. I'll admit, as much as we use Prusa tools and stuff, I also have bamboo. And I designed the XL specifically because I wanted a bigger shelf to hold my AMS and some other larger stuff, my Prusa Mini and some other, like, these things are really hefty load bearing.
Wow.
And with some of the cleat walls I've been building, I love French cleats. If you guys have known me, I'm a massive advocate for French cleats. Best cleat, strongest, just great modular system for stuff. I had a post over the weekend where I made a nice cleat wall in the closet, and I've put some in my daughter's room for shelving on there. So the possibilities are endless. And I'm just excited.
Just for filament.
No, it's not just for filament anymore. I love just modular organization and stuff. If you've seen any of the belt printing we do, I've designed it so that the belt printers can hang on the cleat wall. And I've got a couple of other cool tricks up my sleeve that will be dropping soon. So I just signed up to create a printables club. So it is an open source system. The RepRack is open source.
Yep.
And I'm very appreciative of just everybody like Liz who just shares what we do. There are ways to contribute to the development of it because it is free. Buying starter kits is a great way. Buying like accessories that you don't want to source yourself is always a way. If you want to go to the website, you can do that. And if you want to join the club, we've got some kind of exclusive stuff that we're starting off for members on there. Liz is my latest member. I thank her for joining. And just, more little doodads that I'm releasing. I've got a couple things coming up this month and next month that are already either developed or soon to be developed. My own take on, not quite the same as Kevin's end caps, but we do have like a nice like end plug and just some random stuff for, like, if you want to drill a screw through and mount it to the wall, and kind of low profile, nice felt stuff. Yeah. And then we've got some interesting new, this is aluminum tube. This is not EMT. But I've got some interesting modular aluminium tube designs that will link together that make things a little bit more convenient to ship. So some different takes on the starter kits and options. So I love modular design stuff, and I'm constantly iterating on all sorts of fun stuff. So keep an eye out for what's fun there. And thank you to everybody who supported.
Yeah, I do think of myself as like a RepRack influencer. Because
you're the best influencer. Yeah.
we got Wexter to
Yeah.
build racks.
I know, that's amazing to get that guy to do anything.
Yep.
It's
He kept
amazing.
on looking. And not only that, Kevin designed custom hangers that have like Wexter's signature. He needed a different size. He needed a different size for his for what he was using. And so so Kevin said, "Oh, I can, I said I'll get my in-house designer on that." And he designed the new hangers for him, and even put the Wexter signature. So it's kind of fun.
What's wild to me is like there are people out there with far better RepRack installations than I have. It's like I'm like, oh man, I gotta just have other people like. I need to just update my photos, like use your photos and use some of the other community ones, because man, some of the creativity that I've seen. And
I've seen people do all kinds, like the Chris Travis with the ones in the cupboard or the shelves, like it just makes sense.
So creative. And what's interesting too is that dimension, I spent a lot of time thinking about the distance between the pipes, right? Because there's not really a standard spool, but kind of the de facto kilo diameter is at least 8 inches, give or take. 200 millimeters plus or minus, or what is that, 250, 240? I don't know. Anyway, I spent a lot of time thinking about what is the ideal distance, just so there's some stability. And I've played with different designs. Like if you've seen the slip rod, I don't know if you play with that. So you can put these little slick coatings on the actual rod so that you can print directly off the RepRacks. These are the exact same rods that are used inside the RepBox, and the dimensions are the same. So that if you want to use the roller, there's a printable version of like our bearing roller, of our stand. So there's a whole modular system to it. Liz mentioned the stud cleats. These are actually cleats. They're just 2 really tiny French cleats feathered together. So there's still a French cleat, guys. I love French cleats. And people have come up with all kinds of creative ways to attach things. I've seen little clips for identifying what kind of filament you have. So here's a question for you, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
How do you choose to organize your filament? That's the number one question, right? Everybody's like, do I go by color? Do I go by material? Do I do material and color? Do I do like, what's the method?
So first of all, I only use PLA. So that's
easy.
the thing for me. So that's easy. So I do it by color temperature, by color. And then the excess of those colors sort of goes above it. But as you can see up there's a lot of like the protopasta, just because I use it a lot. On my other rack, I have a lot of the black and white. I also have my oh my goodness, polyalchemy elixir is there, like all together. I have 6, I think 6 of them. Fresh cocoa. We hear that something's happening. Things are brewing. Anyway, and then that's just basically my sort of spare filaments. And then there's a whole bottom rack there, and that's all my rainbow and my multiple extrusion filaments. So I have all those. So that's cool. how I'm organized right now. So right now I have 2 printers that I work with, and I have the Sobel SV06, which is actually like one of the best printers I've ever used.
I heard it's amazing.
My Prusa Mark 3S.
Trusty i3, good.
Well, it's going to be trustier soon, because Glendon actually in chat, he had a spare Revo, and so I'm going to be installing a Revo there.
I'm going to Revoize it. Very cool.
Yeah, I've had a few problems. I am the color swap. Nick from Polymaker has named me the color swap queen.
Yeah.
Most of the things that I print, like this is my butterfly coaster, I designed this. Or things like HueForge require lots of filament swaps.
Sure.
So I don't want jams. I don't want to experience jams. And there is a slight problem sometimes with silks in the
getting jammed
just
up
with the Mark III. Yeah, just with the Mark III. It is anyway. I'm working on it.
We Revoized
easier too.
Our fleet of Mark IIIs like probably a year ago at this, whenever the Revo first dropped, like immediately. And it is the #1 quality of life. And let me tell you something, guys. I don't take that lightly, because for production machines, I am not a fan of messing with stock, generally speaking. But there are two things that I'm willing to do to a Mark III. One is put a Revo on it, and two is cooling upgrade, because their stock cooling can be better and is better with some upgrades and stuff like that. But now that we're in Mark IV land, there's a whole other stuff. But I think you're going to be really happy with the Revo.
Yeah,
just the ability to
funny,
swap.
Last week we interviewed Andy from Hero Me.
Yeah. He's gonna be on my podcast this week, so that's awesome.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we geeked out about all those different modifications, and there's like 600 different combinations that he has, and he's a neat guy. That was fun, because also we talked about a bit about his wife does soap making, and they also are beekeepers.
Andy is such a great dude. I love his energy. I'm trying to think when we first met. I mean, we hung out a good amount at Rocky Mountain, and that was the first time I met his wife. And I just love his passion and what he's done with the Hero Me, and just being involved in the community. He's just a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
cool.
And this is a neat thing. We've got all kinds of people that are different types of makers. We've got friends in the community that design models of like busts or intricate, intricate vases and all sorts of things. And then we have people that do like really practical things, and we all just sort of get what we're doing. So you talked a little bit about business and print farming. So tell me about print farming and what you do with that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of maker entrepreneurship, and by that I mean people that are like actually taking the hobby to the next level and trying to make a living out of it, which is never an easy thing. I think business in general is never an easy thing, but when you have the maker mindset specifically, and we all just really are passionate about the makes and all this stuff, like there are a lot of things that are working against being a successful entrepreneur, I think, as a maker. And so we talk about that on our podcast. We do that every Friday. So a short plug for that over on YouTube. It's called Maker That Money. If you're into the idea or thinking about starting a business and stuff, I do it with the founder of 3D Gloop. If you're familiar with them, they do adhesives for 3D printing, primo stuff. If you're still using CAA glue, you need to be glooping. Get your gloop on, everybody. And Andrew is just my brother, man. I love that guy so much. It started because we would just have these weekly phone calls, and we're enjoying just sharing catharsis about being maker entrepreneurs. And then we're like, let's just record this, and then we had a podcast out of it. So that was good. But I got my start as a hobbyist, just like a lot of people, and I was a professional web developer for 15 years as a freelancer before that. And I was tired of being in front of the computer looking for something new. Started RepKord as a side hustle. I imported filaments and nozzles and 3D printing accessories and put my brand on it. Sold on Amazon originally for the first 2 years. And it wasn't until year 3 that I met up with my buddy Travis, a Pyro Design, and we co-developed the RepBox. Like one night, just kind of napkin sketched out some stuff, and he had a laser cut. This was before I had any laser cutting, so we do a ton of laser cutting and 3D printing, and that's how the RepBox was born. And from there, it started. We're like, I guess we got we took that to ERF, so. That was the beginnings. That would have been ERF 20, I think 18 or 19. It was pre-COVID, so it was 18. And people bought up our silly little mock-up versions that look nothing like the RepBox of today. And we're like, I guess we have a product. And Travis has since gone off and started his own company doing animated spinners and stuff like that. But we're still close friends, and just chatted with him today. I love him to death, and I'm so happy that he's kind of found something he's into as well. And this is the story, the common thread that binds a lot of me and my friends and other makers. And honestly, I know it's not for everyone, and I absolutely want to support anybody that wants to take, you know, that maker dream and make a go of it. But I think having honest conversation about the effects of that and why it's not for everyone. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want it to be my living because then it's going to sap all the fun out of it. And that's a totally valid feeling. And if you feel that way, by all means, do not try to make money. I know people always want to tell you as a means of flattery, oh, I would buy that, right? But it doesn't mean just because people say they would buy that you're going to enjoy doing it. So don't fall for that if you're not the kind of person that likes the taste of their own blood, as I like to say, because just because people validate that you've got something and are willing to buy it does not mean that it's sustainable or that you're going to have the drive to. I think it
takes a special kind of person to do that.
100% it does. Yes.
And for a lot of people, it's people say, oh, you can just sell that on Etsy or whatever. And it's like, no, most of the people that I know that are successful in 3D printing, it is local. It is face-to-face, customized sort of stuff. If that's, there are a lot of people that print off a bunch of Cinder Ring dragons and go to craft fairs. And some people actually, someone that's helping with MakerDeck right now, Gourmet Crepe, he and his wife have a store. And they sell a lot of things that they 3D print. They even have a printer in store. But I think it takes a certain type of personality, and and you have to have more than it's more than a product. I mean, that's why people have to. They should also go back and listen to the podcast or watch the podcast of Maker That Money, and you can learn a lot more about that, because there's no like cut and dry answer, and things are constantly evolving too, and that's
absolutely
sort of what there are lots of changes. There have been lots of changes. This time last year when I got the Prusa Mark III, it was like probably one of the best printers you could ever buy, and everyone really hyped it up, and it has been extreme quality. But the printer that's running behind me right now is significantly cheaper and has been running like a monster. This Sobel SB06 that Bob from California actually sent to me because he bought it as a refurb. And
Bob Carnes?
No, this is a different Bob. There's
different Bob.
Okay. There's lower Bob and upper and California Bob. There's
Oh, that's right.
There's two Bobs.
Bob Carnes is in Washington.
Oregon.
No, he's in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah. So. This was from Bob from California that I know through Polymaker and stuff, and he had a spare. Anyway, it's been running ever since, like no problems. So it's just funny the way that is, but people, of course, bamboo came out. And,
the landscape, and man, if I were starting over now, the choices that I would make, it's funny because it's like you get asked the question all the time, like, oh, I'm just getting into 3D printing, what should I get, right? And my answer today versus what it would have been just 2 years ago are totally, different. And a lot of that, of course, is it depends on what you're trying to do and all that stuff. But you're absolutely right. It's like incredible how much growth there has been and how many options are available now. It's exciting. Yeah. I mean, it's still a great industry to be in and a great hobby to have. But
there's been even in the past year, there's been a crazy evolution. I know that when I started 3D printing in February of last year, so in February of 2022, and then MakerDeck started in April of last year. We have people at the very beginning, people were in daily asking questions about their Ender, $99 Enders that they got at Micro Center. Right. That was the thing. That was the printer that everyone had. And so we always had, people talking about the mods that they did. And we had a lot of people with focus. Oh, Zombie Hedgehog's in chat. Sorry, Zombie. Sorry, it's P and Z, or actually it could be P and P too. We could totally rebrand this show.
EP? No, that's we're gonna have to workshop that. That's not good.
Yeah.
No. Cut that.
Yeah. And now people come in, and it's so funny. They buy bamboos, like the top end of the bamboo, and they don't know how to 3D print. So they come into MakerDeck and they're like, I can't get my print to stick on the bed. And we have to teach them 3D printing 101.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because people are buying these expensive printers and they don't know how to print. So it's been really interesting. Like talking with someone who has a $99 Ender, and now there's people that buy, like $1,200-$1,500 with the.
I don't know if there's anything new about that. I mean, there's always people that try to run before they walk, that buy
For
based
sure.
on spec and all that stuff. I mean, that's been a thing. That's been a thing for a long time. But what's crazy is it's like, yeah, the capability of that machine versus the capabilities of the machines, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And the thing with 3D printing, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are a lot of variables to control to get good output, and the machines have gotten a lot better at controlling variables. And there's no guarantee with any brand too that you're not going to potentially end up with a dud or something that breaks or whatever. I've always advocated for people that are in it for the long haul. If you're interested in truly understanding your tool the same way that you would if you're getting into woodworking or any other thing, like knowing your tools. We are lucky enough that we have kit options and stuff where we can build the machine and really get an understanding of how it's all going together and what's moving and all that stuff, so that when it does break, and it will, that you have some idea of like how to troubleshoot it. But we're starting to see audiences now come into the space with expectations that are just completely different, right? We're just starting to get into what we want to believe is like appliance grade, right? Where like a microwave, people don't want to build their own microwave. They don't want to understand how the microwave works. They just want to put food in there, close it, heat it up, and have it work every time. And that's valid. I understand that. That's fair. And we're starting to see more and more of those types of people. And those people get really frustrated when they're interacting with the old guard that want you to understand and be into the hobby and all this stuff. And so the biggest thing is just like understanding like who are you dealing with and what is it they're going for and all that stuff, because we're all trying to exist in this big tent together. And it can get really frustrating if you're just the kind of person who's like, I don't care how it works. I just want it to work. Tell me how to get it to work.
I was very fortunate when I got started that I had people like Chris Russell, Krusty, who sort of gave me the history of things and took me through the basics and had me respect what got people to this point. I'm also a huge history buff, and I feel very strongly about dancing with the one that bring in learning, the stories of things. So I have a greater respect. Of course, I've also attended some RepRap festivals. So people who had, some of the first printers, and I've heard about some of the first printers, that came out, and even in the year and a half that I've been involved, I've seen a lot of change. There's a lot of conversation about open source right now.
There's about that,
yeah. I attended Creality Share Fest, and our friend K2 Kevin gave quite a speech about the Creality Cloud at the event as he was accepting a prize. But there are people who are, they're speaking up. Sam Prentice just got back from China, and part of his trip to China was to talk about that relationship and the chain of communication where things break down, where things completely shut down at times. And this week we're also looking, Bamboo's doing this, like their new version of printables or Creality Cloud, or who knows what it is. I've heard a couple things about it. So it's really interesting, because we do have like the old guard, or the people that like respect what's gotten us to this point, to now, like you said, the appliance machines and people that are coming in and have no prior knowledge of what it took to get here. So Yes,
Yeah.
it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time.
It's a really interesting time. I mean, I think it's an exciting time too. Krusty says something in the chat that resonates with me as well, right? He's old guard as well, and he's tired of working on machines. Been there, done that. Just wants an Apple now, and I think that's a totally valid feeling. I'll tell you, as a business owner, as somebody who uses these machines professionally for producing sellable parts. So you asked me and I didn't even answer that. I was just saying, I'll answer it now. We print farm the parts for RepBox and other, products that we sell on our machines. We use currently it's a fleet of 30 Mark III Prusa's that have been slightly modified to use Revo and some cooling upgrades and stuff like that. But we're slowly looking at the Mark IV, whether or not we're going to do that. We're still, thinking about it. There is a compelling case in some regards, but I've invested a lot in the Revo ecosystem. So thinking about that, I get asked that a lot too. And there's some partial options for that, but we farm a lot of parts. We do actually do print service. I don't advertise this, but we do print service for other companies as well. So I do a lot of professional 3D printing, which means that my priorities for a machine are different from what your average person's would probably be, in that I weight the importance of reliability and serviceability and interchangeable parts and workflow and automation and all sorts of things that your average person probably doesn't care about. And that's fine. I realize that I am not your typical animal and I'm not your typical customer, but I think it's important for printer companies to know too, like who you're selling to. And we're seeing an interesting segmentation. Yes, there are professional segments and there are maybe prosumer. I don't know what you would classify, because when we talk professional or we talk like truly industrial grade additive manufacturing, that's where you're talking about your $250,000 machines and your metal sintering and like that's a whole nother thing, guys. I'm just talking about companies like me and some of let's just talk about like Luke from Out of Darts or people that have like a pretty successful business where they're making parts out of FDM, typically what I would call a hobbyist grade machine. Any of the machines that we've talked about, and there are pro and prosumer FDM as well. Mm-hmm. But that line of like, well, what am I getting what I pay for? When people were looking at like the MakerBots of old, the Ultimakers, and how much you used to pay for like these engineering grade machines and what that got you versus like your Prusa or your Ender or your CR10s or your beginner stuff. We're seeing that gap, shrink. Like the efficacy of a $99 printer nowadays is pretty dang good. I think isn't Creality just dropped another Ender, right? Like they constantly keep coming out. And for like $100, $150, I started with the CR10. If you're interested in learning the robotics aspect, what's going on, I think that's a fantastic place to start. Get the printer that you can afford, or start with an inexpensive one, mm-hmm. and learn it and take it to its limits. And if you want to go through the upgrade cycle thing, that's totally fine. I do not advise doing that if you're actually serious about trying to use it for making money. Never, ever tinker on machines that you need to have up and running reliably. So if you can't afford to have extra machines to tinker with, then don't do that. But I don't think we're talking about that. We're talking about just, where to get started, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, the Solvol is a good option. There are more options now. Anycubic, Elegoo, like everybody has kind of gotten into the market with these value machines, and they're pretty dang good.
And what a value machine is changing even in the last year. Like my first printer was a Focus. Numeric is in chat. He has my 2 Focuses now. I gave them up for adoption. Gave them up for adoption. Thank you. Fix 'em Dude sent me my first Focus, and then Doris sent me my replacement because of course it broke. And Doris now at Bamboo. Anyway, and I think he's just going to be using like the hot end from it. Probably not much else. Anyway, Numeric has adopted them.
Harvesting for parts is great.
That did not have auto bed leveling. The filament sensor was gone the first day. Like there's a whole bunch of things. But now, when you spend your $250, if that's your base, you're getting auto bed leveling. You're getting not glass beds. You're getting like flex sheets. You're getting all those sorts of things that people
a lot of
used
quality
to,
of life.
Yeah. And you're getting good extruders. You're getting decent fans, things that and then of course, if you are a tinkerer, then you'll find little modifications for it. But now the standard, like, out of the box printer is becoming a lot more manageable. You still have to know 3D printing 101, but it's
it is and it isn't. So you remember how I said, like, it's about controlling variables, right? And so a lot of the things that you describe add complexity to the machine, right? And so yes, if you're just getting started and you don't want to have to deal with getting your bed level and all the things that the old guard had the pains of having to deal with, an ABL system is great. But again, that's one more thing that can potentially go wrong and break. Yeah. And your average person is not a great troubleshooter. So if you don't have skills to troubleshoot what's going on, or if you don't even have a fundamental understanding of what's happening, there's so much more complexity. You look at a bamboo and all the moving parts that are in it and have to be working right. You've got accelerometers now, you've got bed tramming, there's more steppers, there's more precision to the heating and cooling cycle and
knowing what plate to use.
What plates to use. Yeah. So just because you can get a better out of the box experience, it doesn't mean that you will consistently. And sometimes I still think it's valid to start on a very simple, the same way, like, I don't know about you, but like my dad taught me to drive on a stick, right? Even though like nobody drives stick here in the US really anymore. It's like kind of learning some fundamentals of like where automotive came from. Now it probably doesn't even matter. But you get the idea that it's like, if you want to have an understanding of the machines that you're using and stuff like that, starting with simpler is arguably better sometimes, and for the learning process, if you want to learn. If you're the kind of person that's just like, it broke, I want to send it back for warranty, or I want the guy to come out and fix it, that's what the ecosystem doesn't really have. Like, it's not an appliance the way that your fridge or your massive appliance where like a guy can come out and just work on it and you can pay them and not have to care. We're not there yet.
Bamboo said a lot of their requests that they're getting are basics of 3D printing, like 3D printing 101. People that just, they don't know how, they don't know what filament, they don't even know what filament to use. And I guess that's where like our content creators should really work on their evergreen content, where people do a search and find the answers. Actually, I would say that a third of the people that have come into MakerDeck in the last year that have bamboos, it's directly from Nerdy J's video about how to stream from your bamboo. Because he talked about MakerDeck very briefly, and all of a sudden people were in from Edge of Tech. So like that's because it was searchable, and people that are making content, and also content creation has changed too when it comes to 3D printing.
Absolutely.
So many of them, and I mean the demand for short videos. I know that's something that you're diving into, and it's like the short form content. I know Courtney from Filament Stories is doing a fantastic job with her short form content.
Courtney's incredible. She's a machine.
Yeah, she's just
she cranks it out. Yeah.
But there's a bunch of other people that are doing. I actually met is it JJ Schenkels? I think his name is. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's like this kid. You'll probably meet him at IRF. Anyway, he does 3D printing content. Yeah. I met him at Creality Sharefest. And I was like, "Oh, what do you do?" He had on green pants. So I'm like, "Oh, this is someone who has green pants." And anyway, found out that he does YouTube Shorts, and it's just like
what's wild?
Type of content
in the world of content creation stuff too. It's like, and I dabble because I don't know. I find it interesting and entertaining, and there's some zen in it for me too. But there are whole worlds of other communities of people that are solely 3D printing TikTok, 3D printing Instagram, or
Twitch.
Yeah, or MakerDeck or Twitch, and it's weird because there is some crossover. You know, I know Joel, 3D printing nerd, like has worked diligently at moving across not just all the different social medias, but like making sure that he's doing LinkedIn. So because he's got professional representative for like, you know, going to additive manufacturing shows on the industrial side of things and stuff like that. And there's just like different segments of community all along the way. And, you know, the popular people in one area like are completely unknown to other groups. As a avid networker, like I like to understand who all the different players and people are, and you know, get different perspectives. And there's just so much talent out there, incredible.
Yeah.
Like you said, just on doing YouTube shorts, you know, the YouTube short king of 3D printing, Mars Gizmo, Adrian, I don't know, like, and he and his brother Mahai, incredible guys. I met them at Form Next, and they are both very they're very well suited for this type of content because they're very analytical, and they recognize they took their engineering mindset and what made them passionate about 3D printing and stuff like that, and were able to apply that to a formula for feeding an algorithm for content creation. And it's just amazing. I could talk to Adrian for hours about his strategy around just like how long it took him just to pick that name and why it's memorable and why it did so well. I mean, I could go off forever on this stuff. I'll go on.
No, and then you got people like Uncle Jesse, or It's Boy in Space, and you know, like all these different people, and the ways that they've grown and what they're known for. And we've got our resin printing god.
Akuma Mods.
Like, you know, there's a whole bunch
god.
Love that guy. And it's really neat because there's all different ways to learn and share, and it's fun seeing these people growing too, just with the type of content they have. And I found it really interesting, even in doing this show, how much I'm learning and how people are sharing, and people appreciate that. Because Austin is very, you know, like he builds printers from scratch. He's, you know, I think he has like one of the first Rooks. He's done this, he's done that. He may have a working printer behind him sometimes, you know, and he's done a lot of stuff because of Polymaker, and like very interested in the material science aspect of things. And I'm more about my experience, and then sharing what I'm learning, and sort of bring that out into things. And I also get a lot of people comment because I'm female in 3D printing, which is a whole other thing.
Which we need more of. We need so much more of.
So I went to my very first Women in 3D Printing event in Montreal.
Awesome.
And I was definitely the odd one. They were all additive manufacturing, like scholars, and in the industry. And so I come with like, oh look, I printed some butterflies and I've got a chocolate printer, but they were fascinated. You know, they're like, look at those colors of filament. And of course I did show pictures. There were guys at the event too. I showed them pictures of the racks, and we were talking about those sorts of things. And I did, you know, I impressed them with, you know, like some name dropping and stuff, but it was really interesting meeting those types of people. And there were a couple teachers there that work in STEM. I actually talked to Darth Gallum, who's a STEM or STEAM teacher, and getting females involved in this is also this is also something that I'm now sort of taking on as I decided that I'm not going to talk about myself too much, but I started out, I decided to be an observer. So last year at IRF, I was there. We had a table for MakerDeck. You know, we were talking about MakerDeck and sharing, but I spent a lot of time observing. I was very lucky to have, actually, you were one of the people that sort of introduced me to people, and people like Krusty. And I spent all of last year listening to the podcast, watching the content, and sort of getting a feel for the space. And there is a severe lack of female representation. And you still see where there are definitely opportunities where women could be involved, or people that aren't, no shade to anyone in this chat, but aren't white men and middle-aged white men.
Yeah, no,
Because
like it's very middle-aged white man heavy.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, like, well aware.
I do feel that, you know, for events they might want to think about having a co-host that's female, or you know, when sponsors are inviting influencers, they might want to think about bringing in female influencers or people that are not the same as them. I think it's always better to look at a room and see all the different types of people than just see the same people, the people that look exactly like you. I've always felt that no matter what activity I'm involved in. So that's my little...
Yeah, I mean, you described probably the plight of women in tech in general, right? Like, I mean, this is the same stuff I was hearing when I was in programming, and it's absolutely a valid thing. I don't know if you remember from IRF last year, but we did a panel, and I made a point to try to get as much diversity on that panel as possible. And I was really, I'll be honest, I was a little bit sweating that I was going to get called out by the people I was asking for it, because, you know, nobody wants to be, wait, are you just asking me because I'm like the token white person, or the token woman, or the token, you know, fill in the you know, person. And nobody asked me, thankfully. So it's like I'm worried about that, but it's important to me, and I think there's some interesting learnings from that, right? Like I probably was overly fearful from it, but it made for a really great discussion. And even still, like, we could have used more. We could have used a lot more. Like, we don't have nearly enough people of color. We don't have, you know, as much gender diversity and things like that, LGBTQ stuff like that. There are people, and it's good, and I'm glad that they do that. I'm saddened that some of the locations, that some of the events that we go to are not particularly friendly to some of these populations. And I understand that, you know, I'm not trying to get political here. I understand everybody's got their different feels and stuff like that. But, you know, community and what they are and what that means and what everybody wants, like, are always going to be different, no matter what the community is. You mentioned women in 3D printing. I know a lot of the people that actually were on the board for that organization, Alex Kingsbury and Sarah Gerke, and you're right that they are more on the industrial side of things, where that formulated or that kind of coalesced. I'm glad to hear that you actually went to one of those things, because I think that means a completely different thing to different people. I've met a couple of individuals down in the Bay Area that are holding local events that are more on the hobby industrial side, but there's still some of that I'm sorry, the hobbyist side, but there is some of that industrial flair, because honestly, like, that's where a lot of the funding and the money for organizations like that exist. So, but they're very different worlds. If you go to a Rapid versus a RepRap festival, 3D printing are completely different things to the people at each of those shows.
But then there's so many things that are the same, which is that's where I want to. You and I are both like connectors, so I want to bridge some of those gaps.
That's great.
So I have promised that I will have my cocoa press finished by the next Women in 3D Printing event, and I will be printing chocolate at the event. So they're all very interested in that. So, you know, there's those sorts of things, and of course, like Ellie is a great, you know, but actually one company that comes to mind when I think about women in 3D printing is E3D.
Yeah.
Look at the diversity of that company. Like when I was across the tape, like across the laneway or whatever at IRF last year, and E3D is just like a whole bunch of different people. It's really, you know, I find that really
they
cool.
value diversity, and they're hiring big time, and the ladies and everybody that's there are just very close, you know, amazing human. Claire, Georgia, Sibby, you know, like all the people that you see, and you're right, we could stand to see more of that, and I'm glad that companies like E3D do that. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear
and then there's things that people don't recognize, like Capricorn. Capricorn is a husband and wife. Aaron is like the heart of Capricorn. for cap tubes.
I've only
but
met
also
Muhammad,
filament.
the husband. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Erin is
I've
very
never
present.
met.
Actually,
That's
she's
fantastic.
probably in bed right now, but because they have three kids,
Oh my
including
goodness, bless them.
toddler twins. But yeah, they're
I have twins as well. Bless them. Yeah.
Exactly. So huge part, but she's gotten really involved in community. She streams on Twitch when they're packing up orders and things like that. So and there are, I mean, even Greengate, that's a husband and wife team.
Yep.
Cookie Cat.
Yep. Nathan. Yep. And Melissa. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
so
these are all my people. I love all these people. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are a lot of people. It's just sort of recognizing that. But what I'd love to see is, maybe for the RepRap festivals to even have some form of a bursary available for someone who might not feel that they're, there are financial. Hey, we know this.
Yes,
it's not easy to go to every event, and finding sponsors is not, this industry is not really funding friendly. A lot of companies are more than willing to send you filament or a hot end or things like that. But it is different. It is, yes, there is a husband and dog company. there's a filament company that's got a dog too. Anyway, but yeah, I think as things evolve, it'll be interesting to see how these things are handled. The more RepRap festivals that we have, and the more events around the industry that are created. Yeah, be interesting to see what happens.
I think the good news there is that we have more options than ever before for events as the industry grows. So it's like this past year we had the first show in Denver in the Rocky Mountain RepRap Festival. Then we've got coming up in December the Sanjay Memorial RepRap Festival in the UK, the first of its kind. I think it's called a RepRap Festival. I know that there's Maker Central and there's other events certainly in the UK, but that's a big one. And I'm sure there'll be more. We're seeing more of the little maker fairs popping up. Orange County Maker Fair is coming up. I know Ethan's putting a lot of work into that. Shout out to those guys. I wish, unfortunately, that's going on like in between some other events that I've got to be at. And, we should talk events because, man, there's been just some really cool stuff happening this year.
Yeah, so
you went part of.
Yeah, so you went to OpenSauce?
OpenSauce, everybody. That's William Osmond's brainchild. If you're not familiar with William Osmond, go look him up on YouTube. He's massive. He's a science influencer, creator type, but certainly passionate about makers and the like. So there's lots of interesting overlap in science YouTube and creators. So, the Backyard Scientist, Alan Pan, Mark Rober was there. There was a lot of the really popular creators that are more, I would call like tech and science creators, like broad stroke, but much bigger following because they're not so niche. And then of course, like your 3D printing people, there was a table from the Voron. Joel Telling was of course there. We saw some up and comers, which I'm really excited. JBV Creative, who's out of Toronto, was there. Really cool dude. Love that guy. CAD class. I mean, I could go on forever. It was such a rad show. It was in San Francisco at Pier 35. The facility was incredible. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like they're going to do it again there this next year. It will exist. They've already pre-sold thousands of tickets, I believe, or at least 1,000 tickets like day one. But the facility is still being determined. I guess
venues are a huge challenge once you find it. That's why Murph is like, Murph is so much, so easy. IRF now they have sort of established, but yes, I know from event planning that getting the venue, and venues are extremely expensive too.
Well, not just the venue too, but then there's all the stakeholders involved. So because it's the city of San Francisco, there was something like 5 or 6 different authorizations and approvals from the fire marshal to the city rep to the event facilities and man, my hat's off to William and his team for getting it done, because some of the stuff that was on display, a lot of safety concerns, a lot of power concerns, fire hazards, whatever. But the good news was the vibe was fantastic. It was a really interesting amalgam of like top tier YouTubers and makers from like, so it was like, had this like VidCon meets Maker Faire flair to it. The panels were fantastic. There was, and I know that people have different feelings about this, because there was some pay to play aspect where it's like, yeah, you could pay for a VIP ticket where you got private access to meet influencers and have private panels and all that stuff. But that is the world we live in. And a lot of people took advantage of that. And I think we're really happy and excited to do so. I thought it was great. It was I met some new people, got to see a lot of old familiar faces. That was a great event. And it was just one of like 3 or 4 events over the summer I was at, thinking.
Yeah.
4 events.
Yeah. And that's part of both being someone in business and also creating content is being present at these things. And that's, I think for some people, they don't realize, even as someone who's a content creator, you do have to sort of find ways to invest in yourself and get yourself out there. There's obviously, doing things like streaming and making content, but being present, and especially post COVID, it's been really interesting, for people to get back out there. But it is part of, and that could be a whole Maker That Money, I'm sure, where you talk about getting, being present and having a presence in some way.
It has been, and it will continue to be. I'm an avid networker. I'm a huge, I'm a connector of people. I love networking. I love meeting face to face. Yeah. And I think,
and that's,
COVID was big, that comeback from COVID, I think was a big, like, that's why some of these events have been massive and successful, because people are just so eager to get back out there. Yeah.
Last year we were both at IRF, and it was like, it was a little bit different because it was the first, like, after Murph was the first real event, but it was a little quieter. And then IRF was the one that had like a little more oomph to it. But it was still like, I think for a lot of people, it was still dipping their toes back in the water. So I'm really excited. Of course, if people don't know, the East Coast RepRap Festival is in about 3 weeks.
Bel Air, Maryland. Yes.
In Bel Air, Maryland. And we will both be there.
Yes.
We're making it happen, and that's part of, that's part of being in this community, is you definitely want to be able to interact with people. We're both connectors, and to be able to see all the people. So what are your what are you hoping to get out of IRF this year? You're not going to have, I'm actually not going to be stuck at a table. We do have a presence because Sparta has given us a spot for MakerDeck, but I'm not going to be stuck at a table the whole weekend. So what is your hope for IRF?
Yeah, IRF's going to be a little bit different for me this year. So, if anybody that's been following me and my business and podcasts and stuff lately, we actually had a pretty rough, we had a rough summer. Financially, this was one of the hardest years for us. I think this is kind of a common thread. We've seen, poor sales since since I've been full-time with the company. Had to deal with some layoffs and some people quitting and, all that stuff. And so like I said, there's been some reimagining of what's going to happen, leveraging some different relationships. So one of the other events I went to over the summer was going to the Linus Tech Expo, and I was there repping Prusa. And I was very appreciative of the fact that they funded my trip out, and I was certainly happy to represent them because we use them for everything. And Joe's a friend, and it was just perfect to go experience that there. And they've offered to do the same for IRF. We're not going to be doing a RepKord booth now. That doesn't mean RepKord's going anywhere. RepKord still exists. Mm-hmm. We still do all of our stuff. But there's some new interesting partnering and things, I guess, for lack of a not trying to be vague, but it's all still being kind of ironed out exactly what that is. But I'll be there repping. I'll be there repping Prusa.
Awesome.
So you'll see me there, but I'll be very much moving around. I will probably if you see me before, I'm in my booth like less than half the time usually, because I'm more interested in what's going on in other people's booths. But yeah, we'll be doing some of that, we'll be doing a Maker That Money live on stage, and some other stuff, and we've got some other events coming up with some similar vibe before the year's out as well. So yeah, just excited to see all the people in the chat that are saying they're gonna be there, connect with people that I don't get to see or haven't seen for a year, more of the same. And it energizes me to no end, Liz. Just, I don't know about you, but I am an extrovert through and through. These are how I derive my energy. I never feel more alive than when I'm at these shows with my people.
I am not an extrovert, but I love people. So I like all the connections, and my favorite thing is like introducing people to other people. And I find that's my fun part of I like being a connector. So, yeah. And I'm really excited to meet people and see people that I haven't seen. And, when there is another Smurf, I definitely want to go to that. Like I want to go to all the things and see all the people, It's
one of the best parts about this job to me is like the people and the events and getting to do those things. Nightcore is in the chat and he's saying he's hoping to park at least 3 cars or less from me last year. Last year he parked 4 cars away from me. It's not likely because I'll be choppering in. So unless you park on the north lawn, where the chopper's coming in, and then good luck getting past security, buddy. So just there you go. Mitch is going to be there. I'm excited. He says he's lost some weight too. Congrats, buddy. That's awesome. 35 pounds lighter. Good for you.
Yes, Nicor brought Uncrustables, and that's what I ate at Murph. So he fed me at Murph. We were there with Polymaker. Again, I got to go to Murph because I was part of the Polymaker table. And then this time around, I am partially crowdfunded from people in my chat. And I've had some help from LDO, from Sparta, from Polymaker, from KB3D. So I still have a little bit to go to get myself like all the way to Murph or Earth. We'll work on Murph next time. Anyway, to get myself to Earth. But it's been with a lot of help from people. So that takes
fantastic.
a village. Apparently,
it does take a village, and it is a village, and I love my village and my people and my village people.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about challenges ahead. My next question is, tell us something that we might not know about you.
I am an avid volleyball player. I don't really share much about that, but I'll play sand and grass as well, but I love indoor volleyball. I play 2 to 3 times a week, both competitively and just like pickup and club. And I just find it just so enjoyable. And my son's getting into it. This is his 2nd year. He's in 8th grade, and so he's playing. He made the team again this year, and we've been having a lot of fun practicing him and my girl. So I have a 13-year-old son. He'll be 14 this year, and my daughters are turning 11. And we've been having a great summer just playing some grass volleyball and a lot of ping pong too. We love ping pong as well.
So have you all learned something? You learned something about Pooch now.
Yeah.
We did talk a little bit about this, but do you have any advice for someone that's starting out in 3D printing in general, and also any advice for someone starting out in thinking that they might want to start a business with 3D printing?
Oh, wow. Yeah. How much time we got? Okay. So starting 3D printing.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. In general, let's just talk about 3D printing in general. So if you're getting into the space, I kind of said it earlier, but I would say don't just spend a ton of money on a big whiz bang printer. First of all, you need to ask yourself, what is it you're trying to achieve? Are you into the hobby of it? Are you actually wanting to use it as a tool? Do you want to learn about the robotics and some of that stuff? Like the questions around that are going to help kind of drive what advice I would generally give. But I would say the same thing for just about any hobby. Like, start with a digestible chunk, and by that I mean just don't throw a ton of money into it. Like, you don't go get like the best skis and the the high end everything. You don't just, if you're into racing, you learn the fundamentals on a go-kart, and then you work your way up to Formula One, maybe, if you're ever that good. But same thing, with 3D printing. Like, no shame in doing a second-hand thing. There's so many people out there looking to give away their old enders out there. Get on your free cycles, get on your Facebook marketplaces, and like, don't be afraid to like get in there and learn it and understand level the bed manually. Like, pay some dues that will pay dividends in terms of like your ability to troubleshoot more intensive stuff down the road. Now, if your budget allows for it, yes, you can start in an ender. That's fine. I know a lot of people are getting directed toward bamboos, and don't tell Joe, he's not gonna like here. I'd be remiss if I would say don't take a serious look at that, because that is a nice piece of kit for the money. The P1P as a starter, it is a fast printer. It's subject to the same challenges as anything. Like, you could get a dud. Things can and will break. I'm a Prusa guy through and through, because I like the building. I like the build is the journey for me. And they are still one of the only companies that I've seen put out a kit that's got good instructions, good support, all of that stuff, and will build a solid foundation and understanding. You talked about the majority of the questions being like, how do I get started and stuff. Like, their handbook is phenomenal. Their education resources are phenomenal. The entire ecosystem. If you just start with this machine using this filament and using this slicer, you will get a good result. That's tough to beat still. I know that, arguably you might be paying the same or more. So, I'm not trying to fanboy one way or another. I honestly, I'm trying to give like a fair shake all around. If you've only got a few $100, start with an ender, or start with a used one. Or better yet, go join a local group. There's probably a local 3D printing group. Take the Liz approach. Be a good listener. Go, show up, watch the videos, learn, ask questions, like, be humble about the whole thing. You'll be surprised how much you'll absorb and how much people want to share with you.
And try to avoid the imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people, I've seen that happen, because it was really funny. There was one person last year. They came into MakerDeck and said, I've got an ender, and this is I'm having this problem. He goes, but I'm okay. I'm an engineer. We were just like, of course, the ender that he got, he received it as a gift. It was modded up the yazoo, so we couldn't even help him with the basics of an ender and everything. But he's like, I'm an engineer. I understand. And it's like, you could be a line cook and still not, and have the same amount of experience when it comes to something like this. And I think when people like Krusty said, just trust me, try this, and if it doesn't work, going through all the different troubleshooting, but he said, trust yourself, you can do this, you've got this. And like, now I'm building something that's based on a Voron, which to me, I couldn't have imagined a year ago. But I think it's really neat the way that I find that in this community, especially, people make people feel that they are capable and that they'll figure it out. In the good
places, yes. In the good, there's toxic environments out there like anywhere.
Don't go to Facebook. Please don't ever go to Facebook. Stay away from Reddit. Skirt around Reddit. And if the first question is, or the first answer is, I think your filament's wet, go running, please, or get a RepBox.
Well, listen, I'm not here to show my own stuff. I appreciate, all the support people have given me over the years and all that stuff. But I always say, like, Maker Pooch and Business Pooch are constantly at odds with each other. And that's so unbelievably true, because, if I could just do what I wanted all day, it would be like designing, making, building, tearing apart printers, tinkering, all that fun stuff. But hey, I got to make a buck. I got to pay for 3 kids' college and all this other stuff. So, I got responsibility. But as far as the community stuff goes, your advice is, super well suited. I think find something that works at your speed. As far as your engineer comment goes, I got to say something on that, because I can't tell you how many times over the years I've been told by people, I'm an engineer and therefore I should obviously know how to do this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, some of the stupidest mistakes I have ever seen have been made by people that are highly qualified engineers. Just because you studied aerospace engineering does not mean that you are a good robotics troubleshooting individual.
Exactly. Yeah.
Humility is always I'd say the best approach. I would say, if you're trying to learn something, even if you know 100% to be true, just shut up and let people tell you, and just be happy to have that, and like, just take some time to listen, because the assumptions that people make because of the ego that they have, like, will frustrate them to no end, will cause some of the worst toxic arguments and some of these, things. Nothing good seems to come of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like there are incredibly talented, capable engineers out there that I've met as well that are incredibly awesome, humble people. But, when you combine ego with the thought of some intelligence, it's a dangerous combination, unfortunately.
Yeah. Exactly.
No offense to you engineers out there.
We engineers help make things go.
Yeah.
Zombie Hedgehog is an electrical engineer, so I'm kind of scared for our power grid sometimes, but at the end of the day,
it's all duct tape and smoke, Liz. It's all held together, very fragile.
So you are, of course, a maker. Now, when you're not making things for your work and things like that, what do you like to make? And also, added to that, because of course we're talking about 3D printing, what's your favorite filament?
What do I like to make, and what is my favorite filament? I mean, you're asking, it's like, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? I mean, there's just so many good ones. Okay, so I'm going to start with the harder. I'll start. My favorite filament right now, it's like somebody asking you your favorite power tool. It's always like the one you just got that you're just super into, right? Like my battery powered nail gun from Milwaukee is just insanely cool, and I just want to nail everything with it, because like how far it's come from past load days is just insane. So that's my favorite tool, but I've got a million favorite tools. Favorite filament right now is probably honestly, it's probably some of the stuff CookieCAD sent me recently. They've got this dual granite that I love. Like, I'm so boring. I'm not like you with like colors. I'm very like black and white and shades of gray.
Well, this is Polymaker's Shadow, and I love this. I'm having fun with it. So it doesn't have to be color.
Yeah,
I do like variety.
Yep. There's just like a million good choices. What is it? The Witch's Brew that they've got. Like, CookieCAD does like a lot. They just did such a great job, and it's because they've got. So, I didn't answer the business thing, but I'm going to circle back a long way here. So Melissa and Nate from CookieCAD, incredible husband-wife duo. Engineering meets like design and chef culinary. Like, just such a cool blend. I'm probably not getting that exactly right, guys, so I apologize. But the gist of it is like, take the artistic mind and meld it with the engineering mind, and you've just got this powerhouse, right? And so some of the choices that Melissa made for like colors, because they're selling these to people that don't really know anything about 3D printing. They just want really cool looking cookie cutters because they're into being pastry chefs and stuff like that, and they will buy whatever Melissa and Nate tell them to do. And they've done a fantastic job of like not just getting the stuff made, but they're in Micro Center, for Christ's sake. They're in brick and mortar. This is like big name, stuff. And so she just has such a great aesthetic. And when you look at the UI of like their CookieCAD builder that Nate made, and the influence that Melissa has in that process, and I mean, it's just so cool. I love that. I'd be lying if I wasn't jealous of pairings in business like that, where you have like a partner that you just love and trust implicitly. And I mean, I'm not saying like go into business with your significant other, because I have to imagine there's way more failed stories there than there are success ones. But having a partner you trust and stuff is huge, or can be huge. You certainly don't need a partner. I've been kind of a lone wolf with some, good mentorship and consultancy and stuff along the way. So I would never say I did it all myself. But to circle back to your question about like my number one piece of advice, if you're looking to get into it for business, truly be introspective, look inward, and understand what your motivations are. If you're just trying to make a buck, there's better ways to do it probably than doing it as a maker entrepreneur. I'm not saying, there's opportunities, but it's certainly like you want to have a unique offering. The more unique your value proposition is, the better, because competing is hard. And if nothing else, you better be willing to sell. Do not fall for the if you build it, they will come syndrome. Like, this is not Field of Dreams. You may have the best idea ever, but if you are not every day advocating, selling, creating content, marketing, meeting people, finding ways to get out in front, because for the first couple of years, you don't have a sales problem, you have an awareness problem. Say that all the time. That you're just, no matter how much work you put in and how big you get in a space, like there's millions more people that have never heard of you. And in selling is not something that makers tend to like to do, myself included sometimes. I mean, and I'm probably more of a salesy kind of maker than most, right?
Yeah, I'm terrible at the ask. So I'm just like, nope, it's not, that's not going to ever be for me. I could, sell someone, but never, I'm not good at the ask. But
that said, there's so many good ideas. There's so many ways to make money. It is possible. You could, Stephen Poole's bringing up, like, you can make money just selling Capricorn tubes, right? Like, you've got one thing and you're doing it well. And I know that they sell filament and other stuff as well now, but there's opportunity. If you stick with it, you can be pretty dang successful with just a marginally decent idea. That's the other thing too. You don't have to have the best idea in the world. You have to have good execution. You don't necessarily have to have the best idea.
Yeah.
And that's the source of much
debate. Now everyone's talking about dragons in chat.
Yeah. You're not going to make millions of dollars selling dragons on Etsy, guys. I hate to be the one to tell you that. I always like to say and there's nothing wrong with getting started on Etsy, but I have a saying that I have on and I know I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I like to say be better than Etsy. Etsy has its challenges. I think Etsy is low hanging fruit for a lot of people, right? Because it's like, if you want to create a side hustle, if you just want a little residual income to pay for, subsidize your printer addiction, that's fine. Just be honest with yourself about that. But if you're trying to start a business and stuff like that, like they have a website, have a domain, have an official email. Do not, cold email people from a Gmail account. Nobody's going to take you seriously. I've got a lot of rants around a lot of these types of things. So if you're interested in this stuff, tune into my podcast. We do talk about a lot of that stuff
on Fridays. Yes.
And it is a call-in show too. So you're welcome to call in and ask questions, or just join us in the chat and ask questions.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's a great time. I always have my lunch with you. So. And
we love having you. We love having you. Somebody said they wanted you to ask me a question in the chat, but I didn't see if there was follow-up on that.
So I think they asked you what your favorite STL repository is.
Ooh,
I think we know the answer. I think we know the answer, but
you think you know, but do you really?
Okay.
Yeah, it's printables right now. I that's not to say that I don't really admire like what Thangs is trying to build. I'm excited. We're gonna have we're gonna have actually them on the podcast to talk about some of that.
Paul and John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis actually is going to come. John contacted me.
Okay,
Can
so
Dennis be
see,
on?
there you go.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Dennis.
So I'm excited. And I think I did a terrible job paraphrasing some of like their, like what the founding and all that stuff was. So they were like, can we be on so we can talk about it? I said, absolutely. Yes. I would rather get it straight from the horse's mouth. But I love what Printables is doing with the gamification, which is also what I like about things and their leaderboard. I love community. I love interacting. That's not to say that there's not stuff that can continue to improve, but I do love that Prusa is investing very heavily in building it out. They recognize this is a loss. It's a future play right now. This is not a moneymaker for them right now. Like, they are spending a lot of money to make Printables run, and they're hoping to overtake Thingiverse this year. And that's, as much as you guys probably think, when was the last time I was on Thingiverse? You'd be surprised what that first mover advantage gives you. Like, Thingiverse is still a big powerhouse repository.
Because we are who we are, and so we know that if you want something that's going to be a decent thing to print, that, you know, we're in the know. But it's all the other people that are still on Facebook buying STLs, that are buying things that are free. Yeah.
There's a lot of repositories out there that you may or not have heard of. Some up and comers. I don't know. Like, have you looked at STL Flicks at all? Have you looked at? Yeah. Obviously, we've heard of Colts and Gumroad, My Mini Factory, all, you know, good places with their each little kind of nuanced things about them. I do like the notion of better giving back to the creators. I think we're starting to see some of the learnings of, like, the media content world, like Netflix and Apple, start to come across here, where you're realizing, hey, content is king. I think we're going to start to see more exclusive deal stuff, more exclusive content stuff, more gamification, more like companies actually investing in creation of their own content, perhaps. I don't know, like an interesting time. Lots of opportunity there. I think Printables, I don't know. It's tough to say which would be the one to beat. Bamboo, we were just talking about, they're coming out with their own. Obviously, they've got potential for their own ecosystem. Creality kind of tried with Creality Cloud. I don't know where the heck happened with that. So it's like, doesn't mean just because you sell a lot of printers doesn't mean you're going to be good at making a repo. Like, talking about being a member of a community and being a good actual member of a community are totally different things. Yeah. And as far as walking the walk and talking the talk, like right now, I think Printables and Things seem to be like the biggest core community, but I don't know. Tell me in the chat if you disagree, if you think that that's different, or if you have a different opinion.
I think so. We've sort of Z and Z. We did an episode during the summer, so it wasn't one that we had a full structure, but we basically went through and talked about what we liked about Printables and what we liked about Things and what we wished each one had. Turned into me having like a 3-hour conversation with John from Things, and basically I still sort of have an open line with him, giving him some feedback. And now we have a lot of people that are getting involved in the contests, and we're seeing someone, you know, like this. The latest one is like some guy from TikTok that may or may not have his own files, but he is able to game up through Things, and because there's a financial incentive for Matter hackers or 3DJ gift cards, so people are really getting involved. But it's also challenging some people to really up their game. And I think that with Printables, you've got things like the design contests, and those also elevate people to a certain level. I mean, that's part of the reason why we have Fix 'em Dude, because he won a Printables contest, and it motivated him to continue creating. And I love that.
Well, we have Fix 'em Dude because Mama Dude and Papa Dude got together and made a Fix 'em Dude. But
yes,
you're right. You got put on
printed,
the map.
And Joel Telling also printed a massive Millennium Falcon and
that's right.
and
the
X-Wing.
Failenium. Yeah. The Failenium Malcolm. Don't want to get sued.
Yeah, exactly. But so, but
well, look,
really,
there's always going to be bad actors out there, though.
Of course. But I think it's really interesting that community has been able to lift people up that aren't professional designers per se, but are hobbyists that like to share what they're creating. And like, even we have things like Gridfinity, where there's people that are constantly making new things to add to Gridfinity, or you know, the whole
Zach
hex wall.
Friedman is a genius. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yep.
And I have gridfinity, everything behind, well, yeah, behind me here and over there. I have a whole bunch of gridfinity. I love it. You know, I never thought, I thought that I was gonna, I mean, listen, I am printing ghost cats,
Yeah.
and this, oh, this is 3D printies
The mummy
starting to sculpt his new mummy.
Yeah.
You know, I got Bugman's newest little
zombie bear.
Yeah. So I do that kind of stuff, but I also love practical stuff now too. So
well,
it's really interesting seeing people get elevated.
Let me say something on that really quick, because I feel like, and you're absolutely right. I'm super excited that we're starting to see more practical submissions, and there have been for a long time. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the consensus, the general public, there's that talking point that a lot of people say, like, nobody, like, everybody's just 3D printing junk, right? And I'm like, no, like, if you actually spend some time and look on some of these repos now at some of these contests that are happening, and there's some legitimately useful, like, things that you can actually put your printer to good use to. I try to focus very intently on making sure that I am not wasting plastic. I am a more practical minded stuff. So you see, like, I'm developing stuff for product that we sell.
Yeah.
But most of the things that I print are not ornate. If they are ornate, I tend to give them away to kids and kids' friends when they come and visit and stuff like that. But like everything from my watering can to my, SD card holders to, like, tons of 3D printed stuff, usually because I need to test filaments and calibrations and stuff like that. And if I'm going to do that anyway, I want it to be with something that I need.
Yeah. The latest printables contest is replacement parts.
Yep.
So.
And, and to go back, and again, you asked what my favorite repo is. There was a chat on the Prusa Club that's on printable. I'm sorry, the Prusa chat on printables today. And there's a number of people complaining about the lack of transparency around the selection process for winners. You know, the one true sign of success is that you're going to get shade no matter what you do. And Prusa sees that left and right, day in and day out. They can't, you can't win when you get to a certain level that, somebody's going to find something to complain about, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not being fair here. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And the internet is so good at sharing its unsolicited opinion with the rest of the world, right? So to their credit, I can tell you that they spend a lot of time listening and absorbing, and just because they don't respond and they don't move as fast as everybody wants to, and they think that people aren't listening, they're listening. Not just they, but like Joe spends way too much time, actually on social media, and on forums, just lurking, seeing what people are saying. Then he'll send it to me. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? That's overblown. Yeah, that's got some merit to it, And so, but it's because of that, and because I think that's one of the reasons that they continue to be such a powerhouse, because they do care like nobody else is, and as much shade as they get, oh, his face is on everything. Oh, it's such an egotistical thing. No, I haven't seen anybody in business that I've worked with in the 20 some years I've been in business, care the way that some of the people on that team do. I'm not blowing smoke, guys. I swear.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's, and I've seen a lot of it myself too. It's it's really hard. You're doing the best you can. And there's always that guy out there, person. I say guy generically, I'm sorry. The person out there that just wants to chop you down because they're a jerk, and you have to just let it go. Get some zen. That's one of the hardest things to do in business as well too. Grow that thick skin and realize you can't take it personally. Nothing is really gained by firing back or arguing with people online, all that stuff. You're just wasting your breath and time and energy.
I always say, at the end of the day, for most of us, this is a hobby. For other people, it is their, it is their job. So remember what about all of this brings you joy, and that's what you should share, and that's what you, and that's what you should embrace. What brings you joy, whether it is printing, little ghost cats, or coming up with a new way to to do something with your RepRack or play around with the fan on your printer, whatever it is, whatever excites you.
Yeah.
And share that with people, because there's always someone that's going to be interested. Yes.
Can I ask a question of you and the community really quick? So something I'm thinking of. So Kieran in the chat's talking about clock spring for the win. So I can't think of a more, I mean, maybe Fotis too, but like there's some really top tier like creators out there that like have made a living as just a professional content creator in the space of models for 3D design. A great up and comer, not even an up and comer anymore. She's well suited, like 3D Print Bunny Natalie out of Australia. One of the most talented designers I've seen out there. I love everything that comes out of her way. But it's really, really, this is what we talked about on our last podcast, that this maker economy that is coming about, right? Like there are more options than ever before to actually like make top tier content and make a living by having a printables club, a Patreon, all this stuff. And so Sven at Clock Spring, and you said he's going to be at ERF, which is just like, dude, I want to meet that guy. He was on back when I was on with Jim and Caleb doing hot makes, like he was on, and he did the torture toaster for us. And like just one of the best dudes, because we didn't pay him to do that. Like Sven, out of the generosity of his heart, says, I got some ideas. I think Jim actually described what he wanted. This was actually Jim's brainchild. So I say we, but like this was kind of his ideal. And he just asked like, hey, are you willing to create something that can be a kind of like a little mascot print? And so Sven came up with the torture toaster. And a lot of you guys may have seen it and not even realize like that was like a Hot Makes exclusive original thing. And it's such a fun little torture test print. And it's got, it's actually a torture test, but it's also a fun little, fidget thing. So at the time, Patreon was really about it. I would say for like the monthly subscription thing. And Sven Clockspring was like one of the more prolific people on there. And like I said, Fotis has been on there as well. But Patreon as a file repository sucks. It's good for just like, hey, if you want to get a subscriber for your podcast or for whatever you're doing, that model is cool, I guess. I was very resistant from the jump, because I hate having more monthly payments for stuff. And I was really conflicted, because it's like, I love supporting the community, and I've done a lot to like, RepKord has sponsored things and I'll donate, but I'm more of like, I'd rather just do like a one-time lump sum thing. And I think I've turned around now. I'm like more on board with the idea, but Sven was the first person that I actually like paid Patreon for, but I think I only did like a month or two, and then I fell back and I'm like, I was going through my credit card thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget to turn this off, and I'm not downloading anything. And then I did the dick thing, apologize if jerk thing, where I can just download the repository, and then I felt immediately guilty and deleted it all, because I know they can see that, and I'm like, that's one of the crappy things about those like subscription things. It's like, you can get access to everything, download it, and then never pay another month again. What do you guys think about that? Like, do you feel the same way? Do you like hate because like now I'm trying to build up a printables club, and yes, it's like, I understand it's not for everybody. And if you want to do a flat donation, or if you want to support it in other ways, or if you just want to share what you've made, like those are all awesome ways to help. I don't expect anything of anybody. But it'd be stupid to like leave that opportunity out there, because there have been people like you and others that have been more than gracious and willing to support, and it creates a cool community where I can like message my people, and we can have like little FaceTime, or I can have little perks where I can interact in different ways.